We're just getting details of this major independent review by Sir Keir Starmer, a former Director of Public Prosecutions for England and Wales, into the handling of the allegations around the Mairia Cahill affair. You'll remember Mairia Cahill, Belfast woman who alleged that she was raped, and also that there was an IRA cover-up around her case. Northern Ireland's Public Prosecution Service has been strongly criticised in this independent review by Sir Keir Starmer, who says that the Public Prosecution Service took too long to reach decisions and described that delay as unacceptable. The report says that the time taken to reach decisions to prosecute in the IRA membership cases was also too long, and that the overall delay in the sexual abuse prosecutions was, I quote, unacceptable. The report also says that the result of those delays was that each case became weaker over time as key witnesses pulled out and evidential leads were not pursued. There's also strong criticism of a lack of communication between the prosecution teams and the three women making these allegations. And the report says that that also contributed to a loss of faith in the conduct and handling of the cases by the Public Prosecution Service. We hope to speak to the Director of the Public Prosecution Service, Baron McGeory, in a moment or two. But first, I've been talking to Mairia Cahill this morning, who's been giving her reaction to these findings.
Findings from it completely vindicate myself and the other two victims, and that's hugely important for me because the findings of not guilty have been used as a stick to almost beat my credibility with. And I think today shows that, and it is indeed within the report, that I was a credible witness, that we were prepared to stay in the case.
From what we can garner now from Keir Starmer's findings, what do you believe went wrong in this prosecution process?
I think there were huge failings on behalf of the Public Prosecution Service, and they are contained within the report. I haven't had a chance to study them in detail. I know that delays were hugely frustrating for me. There was insufficient case planning. There was a lack of communication at times in relation to decisions taken. The order of the cases in relation to both the membership and the sexual abuse and the way in which that was done. Editing the evidence at the very start was something which I railed against for a very good reason. I think the Keir Starmer has very clearly set out why that was the right approach for me to take, and the PPS took the wrong approach in that, and unfortunately it significantly let myself down as a witness and a complainant in the criminal justice process. The report also criticises the prosecution service for leaving you out of a communication loop, for leaving you sort of isolated in this process. Well, it is a very isolating place for any victim of sexual abuse to find themselves in, and this case took, remember, 4 years. We're into year 5 now from I made a complaint. I think it's also probably important at this stage to say that there's an ombudsman investigation ongoing also, and that this report does not deal with the police failings in the case. And I would expect that the ombudsman report would be equally as critical of the police as what this is of the PPS. But, it's hard, I understand, for prosecutors to keep victims in the loop, and I think there needs to be a radical overhaul of the system, because the most important thing in all of this, in any case of sexual abuse, is the victim, and they need to have confidence in the system. And I hope that the recommendations are taken on board promptly, and it will help other victims coming through the process. It's not going to have any remedy really for myself.
It's important to say also, notwithstanding the reported failings here of prosecutors and others in these cases, that Keir Starmer also finds that there is no evidence that the trials collapsed as a result of a conspiracy.
Well, I never alleged that there was a conspiracy, but what I did say was that I had been badly let down by the criminal justice system, and I think that this report actually is more detailed than I would have expected in relation to the Public Prosecution Service. But I think the key point around all of this, bearing in mind that I haven't had proper time to digest it yet, is that, victims were badly let down, and I think that's been recognised today, and I understand that both Keir and Baron McGeory have both pointed to my credibility as an individual, and have both said that the report vindicates my position, and I welcome that. But I will also welcome an in-depth meeting with the director to understand exactly how he's going to implement robust changes, and very, very quickly, within the PPS to help other people. I do believe it's vitally important that people break the silence around their sexual abuse and report it. And I think my confidence was knocked in the system because of my experience, and I don't want anybody else going through that experience. So I hope that the report is helpful to them.
And Baron McGeory, the Director of Public Prosecutions, says he expresses a sincere apology to you, to the other two victims in these cases, in response to this report. What does that mean to you, to hear the word apology used?
Well, I'm not one really for apologies, William. I welcome it and I accept it. I have received a personal apology from the Director this morning, both in writing and personally. I appreciate that. But I think what would be probably more meaningful to me is that those changes that are recommended within the report are implemented, and I think the actions speak much more loudly than an apology.
This has been a very difficult time for you, hasn't it?
It's been horrendous, William. Absolutely horrendous. And I have to thank the BBC Spotlight programme, because without that programme and without the care and the attention and the forensic detail that those reporters, Jennifer O'Leary and producer Chris Thornton, took, we would never have had this report. And I also need to thank Jim Allister, because I understand that it was him who went to the Director and asked for a review quickly after the programme, and that review was implemented quickly. And I have to pay tribute to Keir Starmer for being thorough in that report. It doesn't take away the fact that my experience has been horrendous, but again, I think it's helpful. I've had quite a lot of flack over the last 7 months where people pointed to the fact, politicians and legal advisors and other people on the internet, I took it very personally at the fact that people were saying that I was not prepared to proceed with criminal cases. I was absolutely prepared to proceed with them. And I think the finding of Keir, where he says it was inevitable that witnesses would pull out from the case, completely vindicates my position on that. And I think that that's the point that people need to take on board. It wasn't my fault that these cases collapsed, although I have been abused for it over and over the last 7 months. The fault clearly lies with the criminal justice system. But I'm not in for recriminations either. I just want the recommendations taken on board and implemented. And it is vitally important that people have confidence in the criminal justice system, because that's the route that should be taken whenever people need to make complaints and cases need to be prosecuted correctly. So, I do welcome it, and I hope it changes things.
That's Mairia Cahill with her reaction to the report released just at 1 o'clock there today by Sir Keir Starmer into how the Public Prosecution Service dealt with her case and two other cases around those allegations of rape and the suggestion of an IRA cover-up. We do hope to speak with the Director of Public Prosecutions, Baron McGeory, sometime during this programme. We're still taking your texts, incidentally, on 81771. We're on Twitter, lots of activity on Twitter around some of the subjects we've been talking about today at BBC Talkback. Some of you making reference to Scotland and how the Scottish people have done things differently in terms of the cuts, whether following what Baroness May Blood has said today, whether Scotland become a model for how we approach things. Others agreeing with the need to restart the civic forum and take things through so that politicians do not have the only platform for public consideration of the future in Northern Ireland. We've also been taking your text on 81771 on suggestions for your favourite Eurovision hits from the past 60 years. And some of these are, my goodness, brilliantly bonkers over the years. Hard Rock Hallelujah by Lordi is somebody's favourite. Puppet on a String by Sandy Shaw. Hold Me Now by Johnny Logan. In Your Eyes by Niamh Kavanagh. Lots more of those still to come on the programme, and you can tweet them to us at BBC Talkback. But now to something considerably more important than that today. I'm joined now by Baron McGeory, the Director of Public Prosecutions. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, William.
And we've just heard from Mairia Cahill giving her reaction to Sir Keir Starmer's very significant review and its findings today. Before we go through some of the details of that, let me give you a chance to set out your response to those findings.
Look, I am deeply sorry that the Public Prosecution Service has been found to be wanting in its handling of this case. It is a matter of great regret. I have met Mairia. I hope to meet the other two when they're available. I've apologised personally to her. The only good thing that comes out of this is that we have an opportunity to reflect, to identify where things went wrong and take steps to make sure it can never happen again.
Well, let's go to that. What did go wrong according to Keir Starmer?
Well, first of all, the case was misread in that the IRA element of Mairia's narrative wasn't factored into the case properly. It was treated as two separate cases as opposed to one case. There were a number of different ways in which that could have been done, and it wasn't.
And so then prioritisation was given to the IRA membership claims rather than the sexual abuse claims.
Well, that was on an application to the court by the defence, Mr. Morris's defence team, that the IRA case should be dealt with first. Now, the problem that Sir Keir has identified from our perspective is that that wasn't properly opposed before the judge. There was some credit given to that argument, which there should never have been. It should have been vehemently opposed.
Which led to further delays in dealing with the other case.
Yes, it was always going to be a long time before the IRA case came to court because it was further behind in terms of its progress, and the court system at the time allowed for the calling of evidence in the magistrates' court, and it took a lot longer than it should have done. But there have been a number of reforms now suggested in the justice system that would prevent that from happening in the future. But
before we come to those reforms, Barra, if just to stay with this for a second, because of the prioritisation given erroneously, as you've just laid that out for us, and because of other delays within the system, it was inevitable, says Keir Starmer, or seemed inevitable, that the victims in these cases would despair with the system and walk away from it.
I understand their despair, but let me make it clear that the Public Prosecution Service gave priority to the sex abuse case. It was progressed extremely quickly. It was in court within 3 months. It was delayed in court for a variety of reasons, many of which were not the responsibility of the PPS. What happened was that the defence applied successfully to take the IRA case first. That was not our application, but the court granted the application. But where we went wrong is that we did not, our counsel did not strongly oppose that application. Now, even had it been strongly opposed, the judge may well still have granted it, but I have to accept responsibility as the leader of the Public Prosecution Service that we did not handle that application well.
In a statement we've just received from the TUV leader, Jim Allister, he says, amongst other things, that this was a series of catastrophic failures by the Public Prosecution Service. He also says that several key staff in the Public Prosecution Service seem to have been asleep at the wheel, with inadequate control and involvement from those in charge. A situation, Jim Allister alleges, which was exacerbated by the fact that the DPP himself, of necessity, because of his previous role, could play no part.
He's right about some things there, but I'm not sure he's right about others. Insofar as my role is concerned, many of the mistakes which are highlighted by Sir Keir had been made before I became director. After I became director, the case was at the court hearing stage, at which you wouldn't normally expect a director to be personally involved. Having said that, I accept entirely that key staff members at a very senior level did not perform their proper functions.
Jim Allister uses the phrase asleep at the wheel. Is he right in that description?
It would be hard to disagree with those words, I regret to say.
Your key staff were asleep at the wheel.
What I would say is that there were key members of staff who did not properly perform their roles.
But in saying that you can't disagree with Jim Allister, it's an extraordinary thing to hear the Director of Public Prosecution accepting that several key staff within your organisation were asleep at the wheel.
Those are not words which I would use, but I would agree with Jim that key members of staff did not perform the functions they should have been performing. I can do no more than that, and what I can say is this as well, is that, look, don't forget, this case came into the office a year or more before I became director. It came in at a period when there were 3 different directors involved. It came in at a period when there was half of the senior management team were in temporary positions.
Indeed, but you've been in your position now for 4 years.
Yes. But when all this went wrong, some of the period I wasn't here, and some of it went wrong just after I.
But
had
within
come in.
4 years, you've certainly got an opportunity to take control of this situation.
But I already have. I mean, the management failures which were identified by Sir Keir had already been identified by me. The entire senior management team had been reviewed, and significant changes have been made 2 years ago. I have also made other significant changes to the way in which cases are presented in court and in terms of how we engage with counsel. So I have already identified fairly quickly after I came in issues which I felt needed addressed within the Public Prosecution Service, and I have taken action. Now, what this report has done is it has given me the opportunity to take even further action and deliver a prosecution service which is even better. One of the key reforms that I have suggested now is the setting up of a special unit to deal with cases of this kind, which will be a central unit and which will be overseen by its own special manager under very clear instructions to take a personal, hands-on interest in the cases. That is difficult to achieve at a senior level throughout the organisation, but I have proposed a restructuring which I think will meet the concerns that people might have about how we go forward with these cases.
And do we take it from what you've been saying today, Baron McGeory, that those key staff within the PPS who were, in Jim Allister's terms, asleep at the wheel, will no longer be behind any wheel?
They haven't been for some time.
They've been removed from.
Look,
from
I
roles.
don't want to start. I don't want to start getting into personalities here, but the senior management team has changed.
It's important for public confidence, though, that people know that you have made those kinds of personnel changes. Of course.
Yes.
How damaged do you believe the PPS is today? How damaged is the reputation of your organisation?
I have to accept that the reputation is damaged. However, I think it would be further damaged had I not agreed with the idea of bringing somebody outside in, giving them a complete blank sheet and having a thorough independent review. It would be further damaged had I not already identified some of the problems which I perceived had existed. It would be further damaged if I wasn't prepared to say, look, we got this wrong. Here are further ways in which we can assure people that it won't ever happen again. So, as a leader of an organisation, all I can do in these circumstances is say, look, we got this wrong. We can do these things better. I am implementing the changes that need to be implemented.
Are you considering your own position here?
It's a question I was expecting. I haven't, because, as I have said already, the case took a wrong path within the organisation before I was appointed. The mistakes that were made at the court face in terms of the response to the application by the defence that we spoke about were not mistakes that I probably could have prevented as director. But I certainly have taken the view that it is my role, and I am better placed to identify the mistakes and make the changes and make sure it never happens again. Walking away from those challenges, I don't think would have done anybody any good.
When you look at your own role as director over the past 4 years, do you believe there's anything you could have done to have avoided these catastrophic failures?
I really don't think so. And as I say, the case had taken the wrong road before I got here. Afterwards, there probably would have been few opportunities for me to get involved in the daily management of the case. I certainly would have done it differently. But I don't think it's my recusal from the case which has caused that to happen. It's been other circumstances. So that's what I would say to that suggestion.
But as it stands today, your organisation, the Public Prosecution Service, which really needs to have very significant public confidence to operate properly within the society, the credibility of your organisation has taken a battering.
It has, and it is my job as the leader of the organisation to try and salvage from this case something positive. I believe by bringing in Sir Keir and Katie O'Byrne was the right way to do that. By accepting the recommendations and by making significant changes is the best way to go forward. That's
Baron
my
McGeory,
job
thank you very
as
much.
Director of Public Prosecutions.
I appreciate your time today. Baron McGeory, the Director of Public Prosecutions, with his response to that very serious review of what happened in the Mairia Cahill case from